right, let us do this. Let us do this. Let us do this. Let us do this. All right. Hey guys, my name is Tosin and welcome to my YouTube channel, Drops of Gold. Honestly, I am super excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited to finally be doing this, taking this step and starting this channel because it's been a long time coming, honestly, guys. So yeah, what can you expect from this channel? So I'm going to be speaking about a lot of things that I'm quite passionate about. I am a Christian, so I'm going to be speaking about a lot of faith-related topics, relationships, marriages, issues that I believe affects women in general because I'm quite passionate about that sort of thing, you know, body image issues, self-confidence, insecurities, that sort of thing. I am into fashion. Many of you will know that I own a personal styling business called Anna Gold, so you can expect some fashion-related content as well. I will also be sharing my life experiences, some of my life experiences, things that I learned along the way and things that I believe that God taught me through those life experiences. You'll see from my first video that I'm speaking about my experience being married, getting divorced, and how I healed from my divorce. It is a sensitive one that I decided to start with. I know, a deep topic, but it's the direction in which I believe God was leading me. So I really hope it blesses you guys. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So you guys would have seen the title of this video. I'm going to be speaking to you guys about how I healed from my divorce. Whew, okay. So this is probably coming as a shock to a lot of people because if you met me in the last 2 to 3 years, you probably had no idea that I was married. But obviously, if you knew me way before that, you would have known that I was married, and you would have probably seen that at some point I just was not married anymore. And the purpose of this video is to literally speak about my journey of healing, what I believe God did in me throughout the entire process, what I learned along the way. And yeah, it's a really difficult topic to speak about, which is why, apologies guys if I keep looking around everywhere. It's because I'm actually nervous. I can't believe that I'm actually sitting down here speaking about this topic and doing this video, so apologies. Also, if I look like, if I'm looking here, I do have notes. I'm not sure if I'm going to follow the notes, but I do have notes on my tablet here. So if I do like turn to the side to look at my tablet, it's because I'm trying to look at my notes. So yeah, so coming into this year, I started feeling the leading from God to speak about this, and I struggled for a few reasons when God started to speak to me about, you know, coming out and speaking about this topic and everything I'd been through. And one of the reasons I struggled, apart from the fact that I'm a private person, honestly, and unless something is absolutely necessary to speak about, guys, I'm not going to speak about it, honestly. But another reason I struggled is because for a very long time, I didn't see my story as one of victory. I didn't see my story as something to testify about because it ended in divorce. I'm just like, you know, what am I really speaking about here? So that's one reason I really struggled. Another reason I struggled is because of the nature of the topic. It's obviously a very sensitive one, and it's a topic that involves another party, and they're not here to obviously speak about their side or anything like that. So I was kind of struggling with, what do I say, what do I not say? Because one thing that's clear, that the purpose of this video is not supposed to be a spill the tea, okay? So if you're here trying to find out, if you knew me before and you were like, oh, Tosin was married, now she's not married, I'm just trying to find out what's happening, what happened. Yeah, you're not going to get that in this video. It's not supposed to be a spill the tea. The main purpose of this video is primarily to testify of God's faithfulness in my life the last 3 years. another purpose of the video, and I believe that God was leading me to do this video, is for it to serve as a point of reference for people who may be going through something similar or worse. I want this video to be that sign of hope and encouragement for you to know that, you know, life doesn't end when you go through heartbreak. You know, there is life after divorce. If you've ever dealt with, or you're still dealing with, you know, pain and disappointment, betrayal in whatever form, I want this video to be a reminder that there is life on the other side. You're not always going to feel the way that you're feeling right now. You're not always going to feel that lingering pain in your heart that feels like it's never going to go away. And that's the purpose of this video. I'm going to be as real as possible. And another thing I want to mention before I really go into what I really want to speak about is that everything I speak about in this video, if I do refer to any facts or specifics, it's because I believe it's relevant to the testimony. Because I remember when I was going through the thick of it, even though I was surrounded by really amazing people, I felt very alone at the same time. And the enemy has this way of making you feel very isolated, you know, when you're going through very difficult situations in your life. You know, even though there's many other people who are probably going through the same thing, there's just this feeling of, oh my gosh, my life is the worst. I'm literally going through the worst thing anybody can possibly go through. And I want this video to be a reminder to you that you're not alone, that God sees you and he will never leave nor forsake you. And I want this video to encourage you and let you know that God is still in the business of healing, and he is able to restore you to such a place as though that heartbreak never happened. He's able to restore you to a place as though that betrayal never happened. Before I speak about how my marriage ended in divorce, I'm just going to give a bit of a context. So I'm just going to very briefly, very briefly, I'm going to speak about when I met my ex-husband, how we met. I'm going to make this part really short, but if it's something that you guys believe is very relevant and you want to know more, then perhaps I'll do another video. Just put it in the comments and just let me know. Just say, you know, it doesn't want you to speak a little bit more about the process of you getting into a relationship and how you met your ex-husband and things like that, and I will do that. I do plan on doing follow-up videos after this because I just think it's impossible to get everything in one video. I'm going to try my best to speak about as much as possible, but I just know it's going to be impossible. So I do plan on doing like a Q&A. I do plan on having like guests, like my friends, so that we can speak about things from their perspective. Hopefully I might be able to get some of like my pastors in my videos, just so that we can talk about, you know, things from their perspective as well. I just think that these are videos that would be really helpful. So I am going to do a follow-up video. So if there's anything I speak about that I don't necessarily expand on as much, and you guys will find it helpful for me to expand on it and speak about it a lot more, then just put it in the comments and I will do a separate video. So just a bit of a context. I met my ex-husband when I was 19, I believe. I was in uni, I think probably coming into my second year of uni. When I met my ex-husband, I was in this place in my life where I was just hungry and desperate for God, you guys. I don't know what happened. Something just switched in me and my heart and my soul was just yearning for more. I just wanted more of God. I just knew there was more to just life. I've always been a Christian. I am a PK. I'm a pastor's kid, so I did grow up in the church. But just at this period in my life, I was just desperate for more of God. I knew there was a dimension to God that I was yet to experience. I knew there was more to my life. And that's just the mindset that I was in and my heart posture at the time. So anything that looked like, you know, anything that looked like what I wanted in terms of my walk with God, I literally just clung myself to it. So myself and my ex-husband, we started off as just friends. We met through a mutual friend, and the rest they say the rest is history. I can't even get my words out properly. The rest they say is history. So we were friends for about a year and a bit. And what really drew me to my ex-husband was his heart for God. I just never met anyone my age who had a relationship with God like he did. I just hadn't seen it. The level of wisdom, passion, heart for God, revelation, I was just in awe. And regardless of what's happened, between myself and my ex-husband, he's just always had that relationship with God that I really admired. So that's one of the things that really drew me to him as a friend, is I just wanted to grow. So when I would find somebody, that, was on fire for God, I'm literally like clinging myself to them. I'm just like, hey, I want to be your friend. So that's how we met. And yeah, obviously we became friends, we grew closer, and I prayed about it. He started showing an interest in me. I would say that I went about things in the right way-ish. And the reason why I say ish is because obviously nobody's perfect. So we did make a few mistakes here and there, but I believe that I went about things the right way. So when he started showing an interest, he obviously went to speak to my pastors, and our church at the time, we had a process in which people get into relationships. So we went through all of that, and we courted for about 3 years, and then we got married in November 2014. I would say that our relationship was not the easiest, and the reason I say that is because not everyone around me was in support of our relationship, including people that were really close to me. Now, I had prayed about this relationship, and I knew that the relationship was from God. I knew that, God was giving me the go ahead, to go ahead with the relationship. Spoke to our pastors and everything. Anyway, to cut the long story short, our relationship was not the easiest. Like I said, not everyone was in support of our relationship for different reasons, which I wouldn't necessarily go into as much in this video. And I just don't think it's that relevant to go into some of the reasons as to why not everybody was in support of our relationship. But the point I'm trying to make is that we didn't have the easiest of relationships. So I did feel like our relationship was something that we had to fight for. I do feel like we both almost kind of had this feeling of almost trying to prove to people around us and to our leaders, to our pastors, that we believe this is from God and we're mature enough, that kind of thing. I just said all of that to say, we went through a lot in our relationship. Honestly, I really enjoyed being married. Regardless of how things turned out, don't get me wrong, marriage wasn't perfect, or clearly. It wasn't perfect, but I enjoyed being married. I enjoyed the process, learning and growing together. Like I said, I wasn't perfect, he wasn't perfect, but regardless of the imperfections and everything, when I actually look back, even though the marriage ended in divorce, when I look back, I don't regret being married at all. We had our issues in marriage. Our marriage was imperfect, but I never for once thought to myself, oh my gosh, that marriage was horrible. I wish I never got married. That wasn't the case at all. So yeah, so fast forward, obviously we'd been married, and then in December 2017, I'm literally getting to the crux of the story, guys, and apologies if I do get a little bit emotional. I am okay, but obviously I'm sure you can understand that when you're speaking about certain things still, even though you've healed, and even though you're in a better place, sometimes just thinking about it, it just brings back certain emotions. And I want to be as real as possible. So me speaking about it, I'm almost having to relive some moments, but that's okay. Yes, I remember December 2017. We lived in Sheffield. I'm in London at the moment. We lived in Sheffield. Myself and my ex-husband were actually ordained pastors. So we were pastoring the Sheffield branch of our church. My family came to Sheffield to spend Christmas with us. Now I remember specifically it was on the 27th of December. The 27th of December, myself and my ex-husband, we just kind of left to just go to the shops and stuff. And I remember we came back from the shops. He was about to get out of the car. Sorry guys, I'm giving very specific details because I just remember it so clearly. Yeah, so I was about to get out of the car, so I just stopped him and I was just like, I want to have a conversation with you about something. Now, the conversation I wanted to have with him, it was as a result of the fact that I noticed, for a couple of months, I'd noticed that he had just not been himself, and I'd brought it up a couple of times and it wasn't necessarily brushed off, but nothing was ever really said. But when I said noticed that something was wrong, it wasn't even that it was drastic. Like, it wasn't like he was like treating me badly or anything like that. No, nothing of that sort. But when you know somebody and you can just tell that this person is not fully themselves. So I just kind of noticed that he wasn't fully himself, and I'd noticed it for a couple of months. But we had just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary in November of that year, literally like a month before Christmas. And we traveled out. We were literally that couple that used to travel out all the time. We traveled out, so we'd come back. I believe we had an amazing time, and that sort of, I feel like that anniversary that we celebrated almost kind of helped to get rid of whatever feeling I was feeling. But then when we came back, I just started to notice that things weren't really the same. So the conversation I wanted to have with him in the car was just to say, we're about to go into a new year. I've noticed that you haven't been yourself, or whatever it is, just talk to me about it. We can get through this. We've been through so much. And guys, when I tell you we'd been through so much, as a couple, even in our 1st year of marriage, our 2nd year of marriage, gosh, we're just, when you just feel like you've just gone through so much with somebody. Yes, I was just, that was the kind of conversation I wanted to have with him, just to say, whatever it is, like, just talk to me, we'll pray about it, like, we'll do whatever. And in that conversation, he just turned to me and he said, Tosin, I don't know if I want to be married to you anymore. Guys, when you just, I don't even know how to describe this or explain it. I wasn't expecting that. Now, if it was a situation where, like, we had been fighting or anything and everything like that, and we're just not been getting along, then I would get it. Maybe there's things that we'd been speaking about, and maybe he had been telling me about certain things that he wanted to be changed, and I just wasn't doing anything about it, and vice versa. Like, nothing like that was happening. All I noticed was just that he just wasn't himself fully, So when he turned to me and he just said, Tosin, I don't know if I want to be married to you anymore, my mouth was just like, when I was confused, shocked. Like, I don't know how to describe the feeling in that moment. Bearing in mind, my family was inside the house, right? I'm laughing about this now, but guys, I can be a little bit awkward when I'm speaking about something that's really like sensitive, or speaking about something that's really deep. I tend to have this awkward laugh. Yeah, so I was obviously confused. I was like, what? I was like, he must be joking. I was just like, so when I was able to just gather myself enough from the shock to actually utter some words, I was like, what do you mean? You don't want to be married to me anymore? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, where is this coming from? So when I tell you that conversation in the car in that moment was literally the beginning of a downward spiral, was literally the beginning of the end. And he said, to be honest, I've been feeling like this for a really long time. I've been feeling like this for about a year, and I just don't want to be married anymore. There's things that I've just been thinking about. There's things that I've been dealing with and I've been having to process. Anyway, I don't really want to go into too much, but the whole point was that I wasn't expecting that. So I'm in shock, and I'm just sat there and I'm like, what what is going on? Anyway, so he just goes inside the house now. So I stay outside for a bit because I'm just like, my family is in there and I just need to gather my thoughts enough, because I'm not trying to let my family know what's going on, because I'm just thinking, okay, maybe something has happened to him, you know, maybe something bad just happened and he's just, I don't know, if he's just like going through midlife crisis or something like that. You know, we'll speak about this when my family is gone, you know, we'll talk about things properly. But that wasn't the case. So I sat down in the car and I obviously broke down and I was crying. But then I picked myself back up and I just said, you know what, he's just going through something. Like, like something must just be happening. We'll speak about things properly. So I go back inside and that was that. So that was the beginning of what was going on. So my family left. We celebrated New Year. Bearing in mind, for a couple of months after this, we just kind of carried on life as normal. It was as though that conversation never happened. We celebrate New Year, crossover into 2018. But guys, this is literally the worst crossover I'd ever experienced in my life. Obviously, I had this thing hanging over me. You know, the fact that my husband has said to me, you know, he no longer wanted to continue with the marriage. And while I was still saying to myself, this must not be happening, there was a part of me that was like, this really is happening. So we're still living in the same house and everything, but things are obviously not the same. I feel like he was probably still trying to process everything himself. Coming into 2018, I don't speak to anybody about it because I'm thinking there's no point like talking about it if, you know, we don't actually end up breaking up. Do you know what I'm saying? You would have just told everybody your business. So I just speak to one friend. And at this time, I obviously do what, you know, the usual Christian woman would do. I decide that I'm going to stand, fight, and pray for my marriage. And till today, regardless of how things ended, I don't regret doing that. I literally stood and fought for my marriage up until the divorce was finalized, actually. And regardless of whether or not there was a period where we weren't living together, I still continued to carry myself as a married woman. That's something that I would possibly speak about in another video. You know, if you find yourself in this place where perhaps you're separated, or, you know, one party has said in the marriage they no longer want to be with you anymore and they've left or whatever, what do you do? Do you stand for your marriage? Do you just walk away? Do you just live your own life? I would probably speak about it in another video, but I made the decision to stand for my marriage regardless of what was going on. I decided I was going to do whatever it took. You know, I was going to fight for it until I could not fight any longer. So I didn't necessarily speak to anyone about what was going on. I only spoke to one friend that was really close to me, and I just said to her, you know what, I'm going to fast and pray for my marriage. I told her what was happening. I said, I want you to join me in fasting and prayer. I spent the whole of January fasting and praying while, you know, still trying to speak to him to figure out what was going on and trying to figure out what was going on in his mind. But I felt like, you know, he wanted space, but I'm just like, I can't give you space. Anyway, to cut the long story short, you know, the reasons that he was giving me were, you know, issues from our relationship and certain ways in which he felt, like I said, which I won't necessarily go into because I don't necessarily think they're relevant to this video. But all these issues that he was bringing up, I felt like they were valid. I was just thinking, you know, I thought we had dealt with this, but it's okay if we haven't dealt with it. I just didn't think it was enough to lead to divorce, you know. So I'm there thinking, okay, well, it's fine. Like, all we need to do is just talk about it, you know. All we need to do is pray about it, go and speak to our pastors, we can go counseling, whatever. But it seemed as though he had reached a place where he had already made the decision. So it's not like he was speaking to me for us to discuss it. He had made a decision in his mind that he wanted to end the marriage. And he mentioned that in our conversation in the car to say, you know, I'd been feeling like this for a year. You know, it is what it is. So I'm obviously losing my mind and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how do we go from where we were to just walking away from the marriage? This is something that makes the whole thing like really difficult. That third year in our marriage was a very critical year for us, I believed anyway. It was the year where we had both decided that we were ready to have a child, and we were taking the necessary measures to have a child. Okay, sorry guys if I get a little bit emotional. I did say I was going to be real, so I am going to be real. So that was the year that we decided that we were going to have a child. You know, we had started taking necessary measures, we had started praying, and even health-wise as well. So that year, I discovered a few things health-wise. Now, I went to my doctors for something completely different, but in the process of that, they did some scans, everything. They found some growth around my womb lining, some polyps and some growths. Basically, it's just some stuff around there. And they said because we were trying to have a baby, it would be advisable to get it removed. So I had to undergo a procedure to get everything removed. We also went through a phase where they weren't sure if it was, they had to like do some tests on this growth because they weren't sure whether it was benign or cancerous. So I had to go through a few weeks where I was just waiting for results on whether or not this growth that they found in my womb lining was benign or cancerous. So we went through all of that stuff together in the third year, which is why when this whole thing was happening, it was really heartbreaking for me. And I said all of that just to kind of give you guys a fuller picture of the disappointment and the heartbreak that was taking place at the time. So I'm obviously confused, and I'm like, while I understand that he may have been feeling a certain type of way, it's not enough for it to, you know, for us to divorce. And obviously I'm praying, I'm doing everything that I can, you know, and he's just like, this is a decision that I've made. And guys, when I tell you, I did everything, okay? I begged, I did everything, guys, and I just want to mention this, that everything I'm saying now is not to paint my ex-husband in a certain light. I'm only just trying to share what was really going on in my heart and what my mindset was at the time. And like I said in the beginning, I just want to try and be as real and as honest as possible, because one of the purposes of this video is I want people who watch it to be able to relate with it and know that what you're feeling and how you're responding to perhaps some of the things that you're going through is not because you're crazy, you know. Yeah, so I did everything, guys, but it was just one of those things where, you know, like I mentioned in the conversation in the car, he mentioned that he had felt a certain type of way for a year. By the time he had come to speak to me, he had already made a decision in his mind that he wanted to end the marriage. So another thing that I think it will be important to mention, and this is something that I believe is very relevant to my testimony, is that not only did my husband want to end the marriage, not only was I going through the confusion, the heartbreak, the disappointment, you know, I also discovered that he was moving on with somebody else, and he was moving on with somebody else that was really, really, really close to me. Whew. Guys, I told you this might get a little bit emotional. I won't necessarily go into the specifics of that because I don't think it's important. But the reason I mention it is because not only did I have to deal with the heartbreak and the disappointment from my marriage, you know, coming to an end, I was also having to process and deal with the betrayal of the fact that he was moving on with somebody that was really close to me at the same time. And I believe that this is where the testimony lies, is that processing that level of pain while processing the level of betrayal was just something that my mind could not comprehend. I was broken, guys, and I was just so confused. I was lost. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know how I was going to process that. And the impact that all of that had on me, you know, I completely lost myself. I didn't even know who I was anymore. Okay, every sense of identity and purpose was gone. my self-worth, my self-esteem, everything was literally at zero. I was very insecure. I became very insecure. And for a couple of months, actually, for not even a couple of months, longer, I spent a really long time blaming myself because I felt like there must have been something that I was doing wrong. And like I said to you, I wasn't perfect. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was the perfect wife, because I wasn't. I had my issues. So don't get it wrong, guys. Don't get it twisted. That's not the kind of picture I'm trying to paint. Yeah, I was broken. I was at an all-time low. There was a period that I became suicidal, and I attempted to take my life twice because the level of pain that I was in, I just felt like I would rather die than feel this pain. And I never in a million years ever thought that I could ever get to a place like that. I never thought that I could get to a place like that. And I say this in all humility, but I literally considered myself to be a very emotionally strong person. It takes a lot to break me. Like, it takes a lot, and that's only because of things that I've had to deal with in my life growing up. I felt like I've just had to be strong, you know. But I got to a place where death felt better than the pain that I was in. I would literally sometimes go days where I would be thinking about what would be the best way to end my life. And like I said, guys, I want to be real. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I know that there are people out there who are feeling like this and they can't even articulate how they're feeling, because that's how I felt. I just could not fathom. I could not fathom the pain, the shame. It was just too much. And just speaking a little bit more about the impact that this whole thing had on me, like just going through that process, I just felt rejected. I felt like a failure. Again, like I mentioned, we were ordained pastors and we were pastoring our local church in Sheffield. So I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to explain to people? Because because all people are going to see, because you're not necessarily going to say everything that's happening. So all people are just going to see is that these two pastors are divorced. And it's like what am I going to say? Like, I felt like a failure. Like I was dealing with rejection, the shame. I spent a long time blaming myself because I felt like, you know what, maybe I could have been a better wife, maybe I could have been a better girlfriend. And that's probably true. I could have been maybe better or not better, but that's besides the point. But there was just all these things that I was feeling. But yeah, just so moving on, I was working in Sheffield. I had to be signed off work. I was signed off work for about 3 months. It obviously started to affect me financially. So to cut the long story short, again, towards the end of 2018, I decided to move back to London, to my mom's house. This was in October 2018. Right, I found a job here in London. It was a contract job. It was like a job on a contract for 12 months. And I specifically wanted to get a job on a contract for 12 months because, bearing in mind, in my head, I'm still thinking to myself, you know, it's only temporary. Because I honestly believed that God was going to do something still. I was just like, God is going to restore my marriage. Like, there's no other option. You know, I was just like, you know, God has to do something. So even though I was making all these moves, making all these decisions, there was a deep part of me that was still like, you know, there's still hope. You know, maybe God is just going to do something, and this is just going to be something that's part of our testimony, something that's part of our story, you know. So September, October, I moved back to London. And I just want to speak about the last day in my marital home. I had obviously packed up everything. I couldn't bring everything down with me to London because there was no space in my mom's house. As far as I was concerned, I was actually going to be sleeping on the sofa, which I did. That's another story. I was on the sofa for a couple of months. Life was tough, guys. Life was tough. Yeah, so the last day in my marital home, I want to speak about this because I just believe it was the beginning of, just healing and me seeing things in a completely different light. The last day in my marital home, I remember I had packed a lot of stuff, and I was just left with the bags that I was going to take with me in the car and drive down to London. I remember that day so well. It was empty. There was no one there. It was just me. My friends had helped me like days before to move stuff, but it was just me on that day. I remember I was in our bedroom, and I just looked around me and I just fell to the floor because I'd been fighting for so long, you guys. I had been fighting. I had been doing everything. I didn't know what more to do. I literally got to the end of myself. I fell on the floor, and these were the words. These were the only words I could utter. I said, "You give and you take away. Yet will I say, blessed be the name of the Lord." Guys, I kept repeating those words over and over and over again. I must have been there for like over an hour. I was on the floor weeping. I was in pain, and I was like, I'm leaving my marital home and I'm going back to my mother's house. And I just kept saying, "You give and you take away. Yet will I say, blessed be the name of the Lord." And I felt like in that moment, something broke in me. I was still gonna go ahead and go on, this journey of healing and all of that amazing stuff, but something shifted in me. And I just kind of got to a place where, even though I hadn't given up on perhaps God may or may not restore my marriage, I was just in this place where I was just like, God, if you restore it, good. If you don't restore it, good. But I will still say, blessed be the name of the Lord. I will still worship you. I will still serve you. And that was while still hurting, I felt like I got to a place where my desperation for God exceeded my desperation for Him to restore my marriage. And it exceeded my desperation to understand why I was going through what I was going through. I had reached a certain point of brokenness and getting to the end of myself, to the point where I just needed God. And that was the beginning of healing for me.